Welcome back to the TRBusiness video channel. I'm here with Julián Díaz, CEO of Dufry. Thank you again for taking time to speak to us today. We're very pleased to have you here.
Thank you very much.
I want to kick off this second part of the interview by talking or addressing Chinese travellers. We've heard so much about the the potential there, and how many are going to continue to travel, and it seems like a sustainable flow. But as we know, there are geopolitical events which can impact the number of travellers very, very quickly. So I just wanted to get your opinion on whether you think the flow of Chinese travellers, the number of Chinese travellers is sustainable, and whether we could be walking into a state of complacency as we have done before, perhaps with the Japanese high spenders.
Well, in the way I understand the question, it's not easy to answer, because obviously I think during the next 4 or 5 years, the number of Asian passengers, because not only Chinese, will increase. And I think this is a fact, obviously depending on many circumstances, but it's a fact. I think the problem that I visualize there is who are these passengers and what is the profile of these passengers, because we have been used to Chinese passengers in the past with a significant level that, in terms of the profile, facilitate the expansion of luxury brands or expensive products or similar items. The question here is, in the future, with this mass market that will happen, not everybody will be the same. And I think to identify the profile of the passenger, what are they able to buy, how they are going to buy, this is a more complex thing. And I think we need to be sure that and I understand obviously that different companies do different things. We understand this passenger profile, and I have seen over the past months that the change in spend per passenger for Chinese passenger is also moving, and it's moving down. It's not only moving up, and this is something that, in terms of the volume of passengers, we need to take into consideration. In 3-4 years' time, I believe that obviously the development of the market will be in Asia. Development, understanding, number of potential customers, emerging middle class will obviously be faster in Asian countries. The other part is who they are, and I don't think that they are the same that in the past.
No, I would agree with you. There's many different things that are influencing their spending nowadays. You only have to look at live streaming shopping events where bloggers and vloggers walk around with a phone in front of their face, talking to their audience directly and actually receiving comments as they speak, and money, which is incredible when you think about that. I mean, they cannot be the same spend patterns when you see that those are the influencing factors.
Yes.
Speaking back to your business and the areas in which you operate, in the first half, Dufry managed to expand its presence on 12 cruise ships, if I'm correct. It doesn't surprise me that, as the whole industry now appears to be pivoting towards this business, do you think currently you're happy with the slice of pie that you have, or are you really hoping to focus more on increasing that?
Well, we have been awarded 29 new ships, and we have started operations in around 12 now. So far, I think 15 during 2018. By middle of 2019, probably all the ships that we have been awarded will be in operation. I think the way that we understand this business is a future investment in a specific channel that we believe that will have a significant growth. Again, the point here is how to improve the performance, because for doing the same thing that we were doing in the past, I don't think that Dufry is interested. And I believe, and this is one of our main targets, is that we need to change the scope of the business we are doing from the business oriented retail point of view. What I mean is, to open a shop in a ship is very simple. Okay? You go there, and obviously there is a technique. But I think we need to be like in the airport. We need to change the scope of the shops. The shops should be different, should be more alive, should contact with the people, with the passengers, directly like in the airports. And we need to create a more flexible assortment that will be adapted depending on the routes and depending on the type of passenger. And this is a model that I believe we have developed. I got the impression that we need a time. Obviously, it's not easy, but during the next 12 months, not years, we are going to really confirm that this new approach in terms to the cruise business retail is generating extra value. What is the extra value? Increase the spend per passenger. That's all. We cannot be around if we are very, building very nice shops. This is all just a tool. The tool is, let's check how much the increase spend per passenger is, and we need a time. We need, I think, between 12 months, probably 12, 15 months for really confirm it.
And again, it's a channel that, you're increasing your presence in, but perhaps obviously not as dominant as you are in the airport environment. And you mentioned with Asia, where you're also still hoping to expand, that acquisitions is something that you're open to. Is this the same in cruise? Would you be open to acquisitions in the cruise channel?
The answer is no. I think our capital, because obviously it's like in the economy, is the use of source resources has to be used in the best way possible. The allocation of capital in our company is going to the airport retail more than any other channel.
Okay. Moving back to global politics, a fun topic. The ongoing trade war between the US and China is going to have a knock-on effect, not just for companies around the world, but also the consumers. It's going to hit them very hard. However, this will have positive ramifications for duty-free and travel retail operators if we're looking at it in the cold light of day, providing passengers continue to travel in the same volumes, of course. On the other hand, obviously, global problems like this are not good generally for the global economy. What is your view?
Well, it's depending on the region, depending on the country. What I would say in general terms, that any historical in the past situation where taxes and duties in the countries increased, as a travel retail duty-free company, we had a good, obviously, generation of value. The savings increase, the possibility to improve the margins is also a significant issue. This means that, in general terms, any trade war will impact in a positive way a travel retail company. We cannot say that, because depending on the country and depending on the circumstances. A general answer to that is, I don't know, but the reality is that every time in a country you increase duties and taxes, the perception of value increases and normally the margins increases.
Which some suppliers might be happy to hear about.
I think so.
Staying with politics just for a moment, we're all tired of hearing about Brexit. I'm sure you are, but I'd still like to ask you about it anyway. Are you prepared for a number of scenarios?
Yeah, not yet, but we are prepared for different scenarios, especially a hard Brexit. That is probably the outcome is the better. Theoretically, the better outcome for the travel retail duty-free, but it's the most complex too, because depending how it's implemented. But we are preparing different scenarios, assuming obviously from a soft Brexit to a hard Brexit, for understanding if in the last moment or in the last minute we need to implement specific initiatives. I am concerned about the lack of plan. Okay, the reality cannot be controlled. Will be wherever the European Union and the UK decided, but the lack of plan could create a big mess if we are not ready. And I hope that, and I am sure, of course, that by year-end this year we will have a plan, understanding the consequences of the different alternatives.
It's interesting you mentioned that you're worried that there may not be that plan. Of course, more than perhaps yourselves being Brexit ready, it may be more important for the airports to be Brexit ready, because without that continuous flow of passengers, there's going to be real problems. So are you confident that the airports are ready?
Well, I don't know, case by case. What I think is the airports today are obviously operating a market where the movement of passengers is free. If in the past they need to control passengers, they need to be sure that there is a different traffic flow, each airport requires a different approach, but I think they have to be prepared.
Let's just hope that they will be in time. Moving on to the other side of the world, Brazil and the shops in the Brazilian borders. We've been talking about this for a number of years. It doesn't provide, as I understand it, it won't provide the business with the same captive audience as perhaps other rival shops or even other border shops. Is it still an attractive proposition?
I think so. I think still, even with the regime as has been defined, is a very good opportunity in terms of business. It's not a typical border shop in the sense that we had in other countries, but it's more a bonded area approach where there are other operators. It's a free market as far as you are able to really set up the business with the different approvals. It's a different model, but still, in my view, it's a very good model.
You've mentioned, obviously, we know that arrivals is important in Brazil for Dufry, and it could be an exciting prospect in Russia as well, where you operate at 3 of the country's airports, if I'm not mistaken. Can you give us an update, perhaps, on the potential of this business?
We have investigated the market in Russia, and we are not satisfied with the level and the way the business is operated there, and we are not going to invest in border shops in Russia so far. If in the future we find an operation that will meet with all requirements that we are obviously interested to implement, we will consider it, but not in the short term.
Okay, and just one final question. What are your ambitions for the company next year and beyond? What is your sort of core?
The company is, in my view, Dufry is in a very good situation for really assuming the leader of the travel retail as we are, and leading the changes that the business requires in terms of putting the travel retail in the position to compete with the disruptors around. Where and how? I think it's important that we all understand where we are. We are probably the only channel that could compete with disruptors, different types of disruptors, at the same level, with the advantage that we have the customer in our shops or close to our shops. How to use the technology for becoming travel retail in a different channel, hybrid between online and retail, is probably the best case scenario for all of us. We are in the process to implement worldwide, and by December this year we are going to fulfill this task, is the digitalization of the different countries we operate. And we have started to implement the new generation store that I have commented on many times. After that, I think the next move should be really accelerate the contact and the relationship with the customers, the engagement with the customers through digitalization. And I think we should move from being a retail company to be an hybrid between online and retail company. And Dufry wants to position the business in this specific area during the next 2 or 3 years. How and obviously who is going to lead the process is depending on the different companies, you will have different answers. We have a proposal, an internal proposition to make it happen. And this is, in my view, a next step in terms of understanding the travel retail. Travel retail, again, you cannot forecast the future, but it's going to be different in 2 or 3 years. And we want to be in position in this place of hybrid online retail company, with the advantage to have every year 330 million customers that buy something in our shops today. Okay.
Sounds like a sound plan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.